much for interviewing me. This is so fun.
Yeah, thank you for letting us interview. So, can you start by introducing yourself, telling us a bit about your background, and what inspired you to become a writer?
Sure. My name is Sayantani DasGupta. If you speak Bengali, that's Sayantani DasGupta is how you would pronounce it. I came to children's writing a bit later in life, meaning I had a couple other jobs before it. I was a pediatrician, which is a doctor for kids, and really liked talking about stories and really liked thinking about both how kids can be healthy in their bodies, but also how they can be healthy in their minds and their imaginations and their hearts. So I actually started writing my first children's book, The Serpent's Secret, for my own kids. And the reason I started writing it is because when I was growing up, my parents are from India, and when I was growing up in this country, I never saw anyone who looked like me. And that not seeing myself felt really hard and bad. And it gave me this really false idea that I hope you don't have, Ariel, but it gave me this terrible idea that maybe somebody like me couldn't be a hero or couldn't star in their own adventure. And, then I went on and I became a pediatrician and I had kids, and years go by and my own kids are becoming big readers. And at that point, the same problem that I had had, they were facing. They were like, Mom, we love these stories, these fantasy stories in particular, my son loved. But they're like, where are the kids who look like me? And so I decided to reach back to my grandmother's Bengali folk tales, and I started writing The Serpent's Secret, kind of a funny, fast fantasy adventure based on these folk tales for my own kids. I didn't think I'd get published, but then I thought, okay, let me try. And I took me years to kind of figure out, like, make the book better, figure out how to find an agent, how to find an editor. But then the book came out in 2018. And since then, I've had 10 children's books out, and I hope many more down the road.
um, so I'm also from India, by the way.
Yeah. So where's your family from?
We're from Kerala.
Yeah, my family's from Calcutta, which is kind of to the east, and Kerala is down to the south. It's beautiful. I've seen pictures. I've not been.
I
I hope to go someday.
haven't been either, but I'm hoping to go in November.
Nice. That should be great.
Um, so what inspired you to write The Secrets of the Sky?
So The Secrets of the Sky is my latest series. Um, both of the first two books came out this year. The first one is called The Chaos Monster. The second one is called The Poison Waves. The third book is coming out in April. That is called The Ghost Forest. So I'm looking forward to that. What inspired me was I wanted to write a book still set in the same Kingdom Beyond Seven Oceans and 13 Rivers multiverse that my other middle grade series are set. So the Kieran Mullen, The Kingdom Beyond is set in that same magical universe. The Fire Queen series is set in that same magical universe. So is this, but with two new protagonists. So two new heroes. It's brother-sister twins, Kiya and Kinjal, who are 10. And they're flying horse friends. It's the same flying horses that show up in my other series. So those two flying horses, Midnight and Snowy, or Raat and Snowy, show up. And then they have a dog who they think is just a regular dog, but it turns out she's actually a very small flying horse who kind of failed out of flying horse school and was sent to protect them. And it's only when their adventures begin that they realize she's a rainbow-winged, very small flying horse dog. So all, they're three friends, the two horses and the dog, and they go off on these adventures. In the first book, they have to figure out why the bees are missing. And because this whole series is based on the idea that everything is connected to everything. So if the bees are missing, then the plants won't grow. And if the plants won't grow, then the animals will suffer. So they have to figure out, why the bees are missing. Yeah. And then the second book, the mermaids are sick and they have to figure out what's poisoning the water. So this series, even though it's a fun and fast kind of fantasy adventure, it is based on real problems in our real world, kind of environmental problems, and the fact that you need both science and story to solve these problems.
Yeah. How did you come up with the title?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
yeah, 'cause if I remember honestly, there wasn't really anything about the sky other than like, them being winged horses.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that titles often happen with children's books or books in general is that you suggest a title and then your editor, who is a little bit like a teacher, right? They come to
Mhm.
you and help you fix your book and make it stronger. They say, well, what about this? What about that? So it was kind of a team effort. So the horse kingdom is called the Sky Kingdom, and the secrets are, of course, that the brother and sister
Yeah.
might be from a kingdom that's magical, that's nearby. And then, of course, the secret is also what's going on in this world. Like, why are all these things happening? So
Yeah.
that's where the secrets came from, and the sky came from the Sky Kingdom. So it wasn't me, just me. So, for instance, you want to hear a funny story?
Mhm.
My first book is called The Serpent's Secret. I didn't name it that. I called it The Turnpike Princess. Now, do you know what a turnpike is?
Isn't that when you're like driving and then the whole car tilts sideways and
So it's when you're driving, but so I'm from the state of New Jersey. I don't know if you're what state you're living in.
yeah, I
There's
feel
a highway called the Turnpike.
Mhm.
And so I called it that and I thought everyone would understand. But as you just demonstrated, not everyone knows this road. And so my editor said to me, you can't call it that. People who aren't from New Jersey will think you're writing about railroads or something. So she suggested the Serpent's Secret. So a lot of the times when you're writing a book, um, things like titles might change a lot. And The Secrets of the Sky is one example of a title that I didn't come up with, but my whole team came up with.
Mhm.
And I kind of love it now.
Yeah. So how did you come up with the characters Kinjal and Kia? Um, King Sisha, Toonie, Rat and Snowy.
Oh, so well, Kiya and Kinjal, I have a son and a daughter. They're not twins, but they look like they could be twins. So that's where I came up with them. And then, Kiya loves science and Kinjal loves stories, and they think they're so different, but they're not. They need to use both of their interests to solve these
Mhm.
problems. King Sesha, the evil king of serpents, shows up in my other books, and he is actually a kind of Bengali folktale character. I think, in countries where, let's say, snakes are poisonous, there's a lot of stories with evil snakes in them, and he's one
Yeah.
example. And then there's always a lot of flying horses in these traditional Bengali folktales that my grandma would tell me. Wrath and Snowy I made up, but they show up in all my books because
Mhm.
my idea is that maybe they're not immortal, but flying horses have a very long life. So,
Mhm.
it's the same two horses that show up in all my books.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of wait, so all the books are about like basically the main idea of what is in The Secrets of the Sky? Like,
Well, they're all set in that same magical world.
mm,
So the Kiran Mala and the Kingdom Beyond books, if you haven't read them, the first one is that one I just told you the story about, The Serpent's Secret. So there's three of those, and then there's two Fire Queen books, which are about the Rakushi Queen when she was young.
ah,
So yeah, so there's five other books, all set in this same world. Oh, and Tuntuni, the bird, the wisecracking bird, that is actually a character that like Goldilocks or like Jack
ah,
and the like, that's like a Bengali folktale character, Tuntuni the bird. But of course, I made him tell terrible jokes and riddles and stuff. But I kind of love him, and he shows up in all my books too. He shows up in
yeah.
all those series.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of popular characters.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. And how did you come up with Thumbs Up?
Ooh,
'Cause
so
I love that dog.
you love that dog? I love
Yeah.
that dog too. I have a dog whose name is Cushy, which means happy. Um, he is a black lab. So he's not chocolate colored like Thumbs Up is. He's black, but he's so big, you would think he wouldn't be afraid of anything, but he's afraid of everything. He's afraid, this is my real dog. He's afraid of ladybugs. He's afraid of flies. He's
Ladybugs.
ladybugs. If a ladybug gets in the house, Ariel, I cannot tell you. His fur is up. He's barking. He's running around like, it's a monster. He's afraid of plastic bags. He's afraid of so many things. But he's so loving, right? So I
If he's
thought,
afraid of how plastic bags, I mean, like, how are you gonna like scoop up his poop? I mean, that's gonna be
right.
hard.
Well, if you like shake it out too hard and it makes a noise, then he gets very scared. So if you like shake out a garbage bag too hard, to put it in the trash, he gets very scared. Very scary stuff. Um, so I thought, well, what if there was a dog who was very good at loving these kids, but not so good at everything else? Like not great at flying, not great at not getting dog napped, not great at, right? Then that would be like my dog. And then when in India, I don't know if you know this, Ariel, do you know that there's a soda called Thumbs Up?
My dad's had it before many times in the house.
So when I was little, I wasn't really allowed to drink a lot of soda. So it was a big treat if I was visiting India and like an uncle or a cousin would get me a thumbs up. And so I loved it so much as a kid that I thought, okay, I'm going to name this dog Thumbs Up. And even if you don't know the soda, Thumbs Up is kind of a positive thing, right?
Yeah,
And then I thought, okay, I won't make Thumbs Up black like my dog. I'll make her chocolate colored so that she is the color of like a soda. So that's where I came up with that.
mm-hmm.
I love Thumbs Up. Didn't that artist do a good job making Thumbs Up so funny in those pictures?
Yeah, well, I mean, the copy that I gave, the pictures didn't show up though.
Oh my goodness. So if you go and look at like the real book, which is in the library or,
Yeah,
bookstores, the artist whose name is Sundara Tang, she did the cover. She also drew very funny pictures of Thumbs Up in the book.
can't
You'll,
wait to
you'll
see
laugh.
them.
They're very cute.
Yeah. Also, I've like, what does Tutuni look like? I mean, like at first I imagined him a yellow, like he is like yellow around, mostly yellow and like some orange on the top along with some red. But I actually don't have a clue what he looks like.
Yeah, yeah. So he's a little yellow bird with like a red beak.
Oh, red
Yes.
beak. That's very rare.
Yeah, I mean, I think just from the stories, that's the way he's
Yeah.
pictured. But he's
Um,
very sweet, right?
So where did you get the idea of Kinjal and his love of books? I mean, of course, an author has to love books, but where did you like decide to specifically put that in a character?
Well, both of my kids love books, and I am a doctor who likes books. So I'm somebody who studied science and literature. And so I just wanted to split up the kids so that one of them loves stories and one of them loves science. And then they realize that those things aren't really separate. You can do both
Yeah.
of those things at the same time. And in fact, to solve kind of climate problems, you have to do those things at the same time. So,
Yeah.
and then I gave him that favorite series, The Warrior Sloths. Did you catch that? That Kinjal's favorite books are The Warrior Sloths, which I just thought was a funny idea that that's his favorite series. I made that up. That's not a real series. That they're warriors who are also, do you know how sloths move really slowly?
Yeah.
They're animals. So I was like, what if they were warriors, but they moved really slowly and they were sloths? So that's where I came up with, I just thought it was a funny idea.
That's hilarious. That it was a funny idea. It was
It is
very
a funny
funny.
idea, right? It's just like, how can you be a
I
warrior if
mean,
you move
how
that
are they
slowly?
gonna like save the world?
Right? Through very slow, deliberate motion, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, by the time they come up with this plan and start doing it, it's gonna be done already.
Right? Exactly. So that's why I thought it was funny.
Yeah. Um, so is the Sky Kingdom based on a real place or is it just based on your imagination?
It's based on my imagination. Most of the Bengali folktales that I heard growing up were set in this kingdom beyond 7 oceans and 13 rivers. So every story starts with that phrase. So it's just like saying once upon a time or long, long ago. Bengali stories will start like in the kingdom beyond 7 oceans and 13 rivers. So that is based on like that folktale place. But then the Sky Kingdom, which is next to it, I just kind of made up in my imagination.
Yeah. That's so funny. Um, well, I like how you like take a real place and then decide this place is gonna be its neighbor. It's like
Yeah,
claiming land, like no one knows about it.
yeah, exactly. Oh, I love that you like that. Yeah. I just thought, well, maybe the flying horses need their own kingdom, need their own place to live.
Yeah.
And since they
I mean, where
fly,
are they
maybe,
gonna live?
maybe there's a mountain, right? Because they can get up there.
Yeah. And then like no other human can, maybe it can be like a never-ending mountain, so no other
No one
human can
else can
go
go up
unless
there.
you're a horse or something.
Exactly, exactly.
So What is your favorite part of the Panhari courses? I mean horses.
Oh, what is my favorite part? I just, don't you love flying? I just love flying horses in general, like that idea, right? That
Mhm.
they're,
My favorite color of them is their colors.
ooh, that's a great thing. Which one do you like better?
I would have to go with Rat. Wait, is
Yeah,
Rat the? Oh yeah,
Rath
that's
is the
the
black
black.
one,
Yeah.
right? Because Rath means night.
The
Um,
black color goes well with the jewelry.
ooh, yeah, that's right. And I love she illustrated them with jewelry. I love that. I love that they're animals, like they're horses, but they're also like these wise characters who know things.
So elegant.
And they're powerful and so elegant. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So are there any interesting experiences that happened in your life that influenced the book, other than the ones that you already mentioned?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, well, I think, you know, all children's writers, I think, care about children and care about the future
Mm-hmm.
because we want the people we write for to have a really healthy and happy future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think as a mom and also as a children's writer, I mean, the experience I have is like worrying about the environment and wanting to make sure that the world is a healthy place for you all to live in. And so that's kind of the secrets of the sky really came out of me thinking about like, well, how could we
Mm-hmm.
really
That's
keep
like
the
the
earth a
perfect
healthy
theme for it.
place? Right. And for so that you all have a happy, healthy planet to live on in the future.
Yeah, I mean, like, where else are we gonna live?
Exactly.
I mean,
So that's where that came from.
hmm so can you tell us about the process of writing the book and how you decided that like you should publish it? Or
Oh.
was it just made for publishing?
Well, it was a little bit because I have worked with the same editor, which means the same person who helps me make
Hmm.
my books better since my first series. And so when so I didn't have to write out the books entirely because I already was working with her. And I said, well, what if there was a younger kind of brother sister pair and a slightly, so my other books are a little bit longer than The Secrets of the Sky. And I was like, well, what if there's a little shorter version with more pictures in it? What if the flying horses had more of a role? And she was like, absolutely, write it. So that's how I started. And it's been really fun because it's kind of short chapters. There's a lot of illustrations. There's a lot of action.
Yeah,
Um,
action, you
Kiya
got
and
that
Kinjal,
right. The
right? And Kiya and Kinjal like squabble a lot, which is funny to write.
yeah.
So it's been really fun. And I always think, Ariel, I always think if I'm not laughing or if I'm not having fun, then my readers won't either. So I always try to make sure that the process of writing is really joyous and fun.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that's good advice. I mean, like, because if you're sitting there and be like, and you
Right? Or
don't
you're
even want to
like,
write the book,
oh, I don't want to write this or something.
yeah,
Then why
I
are
feel
you
like
writing it?
the readers are gonna sense that work you put into it, and if you don't put any work into it at all, they're gonna be like, a sloth probably wrote this, because like, what letters?
Nothing against those warrior sloths, Ariel.
Yeah, yeah, true.
They're trying their best.
They are. So, if you could give one piece of advice, what would it be
Ooh, to
to anyone,
writers or to readers or what?
to readers and writers in general?
Okay. So to young readers, I would say read all the books. Don't just read all the books that you want. Tell your parents you should be able to choose books. All kinds of reading is reading. If you like to read graphic novels, that's great reading. If you like to listen to stories on audio, that's reading. If you like to look at comics or you like to read big long books or short books or both or all of the above, great. Read all the books. That's my advice to readers. And my advice to younger writers is if you write stories or poems or you draw, you don't have to be published to consider yourself an author or to consider yourself an illustrator.
Yeah,
You already are. And so I would just say keep writing and don't
for the
stop.
sake of writing.
Keep writing. If you love to write stories, them, write them. And, take yourself seriously, take your craft seriously. You are entering like a long tradition of people sharing their stories. So
Yeah.
if you want to share stories, do it. Here's a great piece of advice that a grown-up writer named Toni Morrison says. She
Mhm.
says, if there's a book that you want to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. That means like if there's a book about a kid like you or a family like yours or a community like yours, and it hasn't been written yet, you don't see it out there, you have the power and the responsibility to write that story. Like we all have the responsibility to write our own stories. So I would say take your art seriously. It doesn't, you don't have to be published to consider yourself a writer. If you like stories,
You
you're
just
a
have to
writer.
write.
You just have to write. That's right.
And I mean, I think even though people don't realize it, everyone is technically a writer. I mean, you write essays, you like, even if it's just for school, like you're still writing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 110%. I agree with you.
Yeah. So if you could travel back in time and give yourself one piece of advice when you were just starting to write, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. I would say, I would say to believe in myself, and it's okay to be funny and joyous. Because for me, like I am always somebody who really gravitates towards like joy and fun. And you can probably tell by my books. And I think there was a part where after when I was older than you, but when I was like in college-ish, when I thought that being a writer had to be very serious and you had to write very
Well, that's the worst thought you can have about writing.
right. And so I would go back and I would say, you know what? All kinds of writing is valid. And if you want to write about humor and joy, like don't think that you have to write the way anybody else writes, right? Write the way you write.
Even if it's a nonfiction book, you can still be funny while writing it. Like you can make a joke about math or something, but it has to be a good joke.
Has to be, well, unless you're Tuntuni, then you would tell just bad jokes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I put this in the book. Like, you want to hear a Tuntuni math joke?
Yeah.
Like, what do you call, what kind of math does an owl do? Do you know?
Oh, algorithm.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a totally good answer. I was going to say algebra, like algebra, but algorithm completely is a good answer too. Excellent. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I have to give credit to my dad. He tells bad puns all the time.
Well, see, there is joy in telling bad puns.
Yeah. So what do you enjoy doing for fun other than reading, of course?
I like reading. I like going on walks with my dog and my family. I like watching cooking shows. I know that's like, I don't know. I just really like watching cooking shows.
Sometimes I
I like
watch
to,
cooking shows with my mom.
yeah, like so even though, so for instance, I have this thing where I can't eat gluten, so I can't eat all kinds of baked goods, but I really like watching the British baking show, even though I can't eat a lot of what they're showing. So I don't know why I like them so much. They're so relaxing and like I just like watching people get really into something. Like they're so into the cakes they bake. I really enjoy watching them.
Yeah. If you could choose um 3 words to describe Kinjal and then 3 words to describe Kia, what would those 3 words be?
Ooh, okay, Kinjal. Um, energetic,
Yeah, that's one.
right? Chaotic, enthusiastic.
Mm,
Okay. Kia,
yeah.
deliberate, thoughtful,
Mm.
serious.
Serious as well. So like, well, those stories aren't real.
That's right. Those aren't magic isn't real. And then and of course, they start out like that, and then they each have to grow right over the course of the adventure. And so she learns to trust her magic, and he learns to not always jump into things, to be a little bit more thoughtful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm glad they learned that because I feel like in every story, one thing that is needed is you need to start off completely opposite from the way you want to finish instead of an essay. Like in the conclusion and the introduction is like the same main idea.
But in a story, you have to see change,
Mhm.
right? You have to see an
Yeah.
arc,
I
right?
mean, that's the whole
Absolutely.
point of it. Or else, like, if I make the story about two people sitting quietly and staring at each other, I
And
mean,
not changing or learning or growing. What's the point of that?
yeah. I
Right?
mean, like, I don't even think that's gonna get published. That'd be very unentertaining.
I love the fact that you know, Ariel, something that's so important in every story, which is that each character has to grow and have an arc. You know this thing that a lot of adult writers don't even know or forget sometimes in their writing.
I mean,
So
well,
I
I
love the
feel
fact
like,
that you know that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like you don't have to be older than others to know everything. I mean, not
True.
everything, because like you said,
No,
no.
no, no. But yeah, you can have wisdom at all sorts of ages.
Yeah,
Absolutely. You're right.
that's the word. Hmm.
Absolutely.
Are you gonna write any more books other than the third book?
So the third book, which is The Ghost Forest, comes out in April.
No.
Then I have another middle grade, so about like 12-year-old protagonists, separate book coming out the following year.
Mhm.
That is, doesn't have a title yet, but it's about um, these four kids who are involved in making sure that this thing called repatriation. So making sure that treasures in a museum actually aren't stolen from different countries and those can go back to those countries that they came from. So it's like a heist book, but it's also about kind of repatriation. So art belonging to the countries that created it.
Yeah, like this is yours, not mine. Here you go.
Absolutely. You have a right to it. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's
So
really
that
good.
book is coming out the following year. And then I have a couple other projects that are secret that I can't talk about yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least you know that the other one that's coming out next year is already coming out, because like
Yep,
then I can be like, oh man, I can't see your idea, because all of yours
exactly.
are awesome. I
Oh,
mean,
thank
I
you.
like
Thank
yours.
you. I hope you like it.
I mm. So we are down to 8 minutes and we are out
Oh,
of questions. Thank you so much for your time. This has been an awesome experience.
oh, you have been an amazing interviewer.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for all your thoughtful questions and your enthusiasm.
Uh-huh. Thank you for yours too.